Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to the motherland of Scotland once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, and this brewery were one of my local breweries when I was studying chemistry in Aberdeen in the northeast of the country. So nice to see some of their beer making it over here to Sweden once again. So yeah, for this review then, as I've just said, we're going to go to the city of Aberdeen in the northeast of Scotland. We're going to go a little bit to the northwest of the city though, to Dyce, right next to the airport, and that means of course that we're going to have a look at another beer from Fierce Beer, and this will be the 12th or 13th review that I'm doing from these guys here on the channel. So yeah, this particular beer is called Day Shift. It comes in at 5% ABV, and this one is a pale ale, a New England hazy pale ale from what I understand. But this beer was released here in Sweden as part of the Tillfälligt temporary assortment through Systembolaget. I think it came out sometime at the very end of April actually. I can't remember the exact date that this beer was released, but I'm reviewing it for you at the very start of May. But as I say, nice to see a few more Scottish beers coming out over here in Sweden through Systembolaget, and I hope we get a few more over the next little while. So yeah, always nice to return to Fierce Beer. If people were to ask me about this brewery, I would always say that these guys are potentially best known for their big imperial stouts and imperial porters and things like that. Those are probably the best beers that I've had from this brewery. But that said, they do a very nice fruity sour. I've had a good lager beer from them recently as well, and I have had one or two interesting pale ales and IPAs and stuff like that. So a very good all-round brewery, but I'd say the best beers you're going to get from these guys will be the big, strong, dark ones actually. Very Big Moose is an awesome beer that I would highly recommend that you check out. But yeah, curious to see how this one turns out. I have tried the Late Shift before, which was a full-on IPA. This one, of course, is a pale ale. And there is also the Night Shift, which I believe is a black IPA, if I'm remembering rightly. So hopefully I can try the Night Shift for you at some point soon. Maybe the next time I go back to the motherland, of course. But yeah, curious to see how this one turns out. Hopefully it's another good beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So let's crack on with this review then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Fierce Beer before, and you will no doubt see some more added to that list in the near future, most likely when I go home to Scotland, of course. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you. That gets added to whenever I get the opportunity. Not too many Scottish beers make it over here to Sweden, but when I go home I go a bit crazy on the Scottish beers, so just depends on when you're watching the channel. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Fierce Beer once again then, on to my brewery notes. So Fierce Beer, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Dyce, just to the northwest of the city of Aberdeen in the northeast of Scotland, and this company began life as the homebrewing experiments of David Grant, who worked for many years in the oil industry. So he'd been homebrewing since March of 2013, and after hosting a beer and food pairing dinner in May of 2015, where he found that his beer received rave reviews, he decided that he was going to turn professional. So David is joined at the brewery by Dave Mcgarry, who also worked in the oil industry, but he used his redundancy package after the kind of oil crash, which was back in about 2014 or so. He used his redundancy package back after the oil crash to put himself through a brewing course at Brewlab down in Sunderland in the northeast of England. But in April of 2016, these guys moved into their brewery in the Kirkhill Industrial Estate in Dyce, again to the northwest of Aberdeen, and at the moment these guys can brew around 800,000 litres of beer per year. They've invested quite heavily in this place over the last few years, and their beers have been getting spread all over the place. You can get these beers in quite a few different places in Europe now. But they started canning their beers in early 2018, having done bottles before, and they now have their own bar on Ship Row in Aberdeen, which is called the Fierce Bar. This is right next to the kind of the View Cinema, if you like, and very close to the court. But they want to move to a more central location with their brewery in the city to have a big sort of brewery restaurant type thing. In May of 2019, they opened a new bar on Rose Street in Edinburgh, and they also have one down in Manchester in England now as well. But as of May 2021, when I'm producing this review for you, these guys have produced somewhere in the region of 150 different kinds of beer, and they also produce gin these days as well. They're also distilling a little bit of spirit too, which is quite interesting. The one thing that surprised me about this brewery is that they don't have a bar in Glasgow yet. I'm sure that's something that we'll see at some point in the near future, and I guess they might well open something up in London at some stage as well. But yeah, probably one of the more recognisable Scottish craft beer brands these days. They're doing some really interesting stuff. Like I say, I would consider these guys as being best known for their big, strong, dark beers. But you know, the pale ales, the fruity sours, and the lager beers are pretty nice as well, actually. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Fierce Beer for the moment. They're definitely worth checking out if you get the chance. But if you want to learn more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can, of course, check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. And hopefully my next review from these guys can be the night shift, unless there's something really interesting that comes out from these guys in the meantime. But yeah, let's crack on then and have a little look at what this beer has in store for us. So as you can see, this one is a 330, it's not 330, it's a 440 milliliter can. This beer cost me about, I think it was 30, I want to say it was 38 Swedish kroners that this one cost me. So that is roughly €3.80, somewhere in the region of like £3.25, something like that, sterling. And it would cost then about, in American dollars, that would be roughly about, yeah, $4.50, something like that. So yeah, you will obviously pay an extra euro for this one, 10 kroners, because it's an import beer. The import company does have to get a little cut of their beer, of course. It does have to get a little bit of a cut of the profit or whatever from Systembolaget. But yeah, for an import beer, 38 kroners for a 5% pale ale on a 440. That's no bad, actually. That is definitely not bad. You'll get Swedish beers that are more expensive than that are quite similar, actually. But yeah, with Fierce Beer, there you can see the brewery symbol there, the hop head that seems a little bit possessed. You can also see, as you'll always get from Fierce Beer as well, you get this sort of newspaper kind of animal head on them, and then the sort of person background. They like sort of personifying their animals, can we say. But it says on the side here, we use huge amounts of mosaic and citra hops in the whirlpool for this double dry hop pale ale, and we also leave it unfiltered, so expect big tropical flavours with a dry and satisfying finish and low bitterness. Double fierce. So yeah, that is pretty nice. So yeah, it tells you a little bit about Fierce on the side there as well. So yeah, we've kind of gone through that in the video already though. But yeah, silver top can on this one, 5% hazy pale ale as I said earlier. But let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. The other thing would be it contains barley and wheat malt. That's the other thing. So it will have a little bit of a kind of proper haze to it, but no oats, no oats. So maybe you can argue whether it's a hazy New England or not, but yeah, I think it should still be pretty interesting beer, this, regardless. Particular style doesn't matter, it's whether it's a good beer or not. But yeah, let's get this guy out and into the glass. Definitely nice to have another Scottish beer to have a look at over here in Scandinavia. And I do have another one that you will see me review very soon, which is actually one of my very local breweries to my hometown. So you might see that one very soon, as I say. So let me just line that up once again so that my OCD is happy, and there we go. So as you can see with this beer, before the head disappears, it's poured with a lovely 3/4 finger of a frothy, I would say cream coloured head. That looks very nice. If we shine the light through this one, it does have a very impressive level of haze to it for a 5%er. I'm not sure how well that's going to show up on the camera, but for a 5% one, this is certainly one of the soupier and gloopier hazy New England type pale ale IPA beers that I've come across in recent times. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But I mean, overall, it does look pretty nice. In terms of the colour, I would say that this one is a very kind of deep, murky, tropical fruit colour. So maybe like a mixed tropical fruit juice. I always enjoy comparing these New England hazy type beers to different fruit juices, because that's just what their appearance reminds me of. My brain is not working today, it's terrible. But yeah, remember, when it comes to the colour of your beers, it's dependent on a couple of things. One, the type of malts that you use. Two, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour of beer. But it depends in the first instance on exactly what type of malts that you're using, and then the level of haze in a New England type beer like this one depends on the oat and the wheat contents, and of course you can consider the yeast to take a bit of a role in that as well. But it varies from brewery to brewery, so you can't really guarantee that. It's all about the exact recipe that the brewer uses. But as you can see, this beer is certainly one of the soupier and gloopier ones that you're going to come across for a 5%er. So yeah, nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance. So yeah, certainly looks the part of a New England pale ale, this one, and remember that it's double dry hopped as well. So let's have a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on. Very curious about this beer. That looks it does smell very, very nice actually. Yeah, you always get nice aromas, you always do get good aromas out of the fierce stuff actually. So where to start with this one then? It's got a lovely big kind of bready backbone to it, as you would expect. You can get a little bit of the bitiness of the wheat in there too, but yeah, the malty backbone in this beer is all about the kind of big, soft, white bready note in there. If I was smelling this blind, I would think there was a little bit of oat in this one, because you really can smell just a little bit of that slightly sweet, just oaty type thing coming out of the beer, which is interesting. But at the back of the nose, you definitely get a bit of that kind of bitey, wheaty quality as well. So so yeah, the aroma of this beer is very, very nice, I have to say. It's got a good little bit of bite to it, and I always think that when you're in the lower ABVs like this, you do need something that's just a little bit bitey to for the beer to kind of do itself justice, if you like. I've had quite a few nice session IPAs and things from Swedish breweries in recent times, and they've always just put a little bit more of a kind of wheaty bite in them. So I've got a feeling that this beer might do something similar. Yeah, at the back of the nose, the more you smell it, the more you get a little bit of that wheaty bitiness, but otherwise lovely big soft white bready character in there, a bit of an oaty smoothness as well. As I say, even though it says the beer doesn't have oats in it, I wouldn't be 100% sure about that, but there's a nice wee bit of a kind of brown sugary sweetness to this one too. I do get a wee bit of a straight up caramel right in the middle of the nose, and underneath that there's a wee bit of a kind of butter candy Werther's Original type thing going on with this beer too. But the malt base, as I say, is quite straight shooting. The beer comes across very nicely in that regard, so the malty, yeasty side of the beer definitely gets a thumbs up from me. On the hoppy side of things then, what can we say about that? So yeah, on the hoppy side of things, again, it's kind of what you would expect. It's got a lovely little touch of earthiness at the back of the nose, but you've got a big green component to this one. Citra and Mosaic, remember, are big high alpha acid hops. Both of them sit around 14% alpha acid, so you're going to get big green components out of these. So you've got a nice bright floral aromaticity to the beer. You've got a good little bit of a kind of grassy zestiness on the kind of front tip of the nose as well, if you like. So yeah, you're getting a good little bit of green out of this one. But this beer to me smells as if it's in very good condition actually. I always think with the New Englands you have to just let them mature a little bit so the kind of green side of things mellows out a little bit. That for me is when you get New Englands in the best condition. But yeah, the green component I think works very well. If you've got a bit more green and you've got a little bit of wheaty, if you've got a little bit more floral aromaticity I should say, and a little bit more wheatiness, I think that always works well for a lighter beer like a pale ale, just to give it a little bit more of a sort of bitey character. But yeah, the green component in this one I think suits the overall vibe of the beer. But on the fruity side of things, it is kind of what you expect if you know the Citra and the Mosaic hops. You've got a lovely little bit of a stronger passion fruit in there. You definitely get a big oily mango as well out of this one. I'm surprised at how oily the fruits are when you consider it is more of a kind of New Englandy pale ale, this one. So yeah, you've got a nice big oiliness to the tropical fruits in this one. There's a wee bit of apricot in there. It does actually have a little bit of a kind of dried apricot quality to it as well, which is interesting. But some lovely lighter tangerine elements to this beer as well, which I can certainly appreciate. So yeah, lovely juicy light tangerine elements, and you know, there maybe is just a wee touch of a lemon limey kind of character in this one as well. It does have, this beer does have a good balance between the more citrusy fruits and the more kind of tropical ones there. So a wee bit of citrusy zestiness and a bit of an oily kind of tropical note out of it too. So yeah, I certainly like how the aroma goes together on this one, but nothing overly surprising about it. Like I say, it just smells very, very nice. So as I always say, take a little bit of time to ponder over the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, but I think it's about time that we have a go with this one then and see how we get on. So this one is the Day Shift 5% New England Pale Ale, double dry hopped from Fierce Beer in Dyce, just outside of Aberdeen in the northeast of Scotland. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah. It's kind of like I thought it would be. It does have a nice wee bite to it, but it does have a lovely drinkability to it. And the thing is, you know, for such a soupy and gloopy beer, you can sort of feel that this one, it is a wee bit thicker than a number of other pale ales that I've had. It does have a wee bit of that kind of light but still quite creamy element to it. But again, that's a solid beer from Fierce Beer. So well done to them for this. But yeah, it does have a wee bit of that bite, which I really like. So let's get the rest of it in the glass. This is one that will go down very, very easily. It's good that they put this in a 440 rather than a 330. I always moan when they put lagers and pilsners and stuff in 330 bottles instead of 440s, because they always leave you kind of wanting more. And this beer would have been another one that's like that. I think we've got this one just in very good condition at the moment. I think this beer is just right in the sort of prime, if you like, and that's good because, you know, sometimes with these beers that are imported, they can sit in the warehouse just a little bit too long, and you get them just as they're getting out of their kind of their prime, if you like. So yeah, that's something that you've got to remember with these. But yeah, this one I think goes down very nicely. So a big thumbs up to Fierce Beer for this. So I need to get the night shift when I go back to the motherland next time. And as I say, I think that is a black IPA if I remember rightly. Pardon me. So, yeah, where to start with this one then? So it is kind of what I would have expected from the aroma in a lot of ways. Straight away across the middle third of your palate, you can feel that nice white bready base. You do get a little bit of a kind of grainy character comes out of it a wee bit later on. So yeah, smooth white bready backbone, a little bit of a kind of grainy element coming out of it as well, as I said. A wee bit of a kind of bread crusty, a little bit of a bread crusty quality, as I said earlier. So it kind of towards the back of the back and the front of that middle half of your palate, you will get one or two little bread crusty elements there. But yeah, the middle third of your palate is absolutely, it's white bread. There's a wee bit of graininess underneath there, and I think that kind of works out pretty nicely. But yeah, it does feel as if you have just a little thin layer of a sort of oaty smoothness there. There aren't oats in this beer as far as I'm aware, like I say, but you will feel as you progress further into the aftertaste with this one, the breadiness that you have in this beer almost just sweetens up very slightly, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, there is almost the impression of a wee touch of oatiness in this beer for sure. But yeah, on the middle of your palate, you do get a wee touch of a straight up brown sugar right in the middle of the palate. It's a wee teeny bit of a caramel like sort of thing, but it's almost like it kind of almost sits on a wee circle that is more kind of butter candy and Werther's Original like. You do have a wee bit of that going on with this beer for sure. And I can appreciate that as well. But this beer, in terms of its malt base, is very straight shooting, and to be honest, when it's a pale ale, that's kind of what you would expect. I would say you would expect a pale ale to be very straight shooting in its malt base, and this one delivers on that. You want these beers to be quite crisp and undrinkable, and this beer is certainly going to deliver that. Absolutely. Something on my tongue there, but yeah, you do get a wee bit of just crispness out of this beer too, which is good. I wouldn't be surprised if this beer does have a wee bit of a kind of Pilsner malt in it, because you can feel on the back half of that middle third of your palate, you just get this wee touch of crispness to it. And as I've told you before, Pilsner malt's a bit of a pain in the backside to describe in terms of its flavour, but it's more of a vibe that it gives you. But just on that back half of that front third of your tongue, you get a wee touch of that kind of crispness and dryness that you would expect a Pilsner malt, and some of the malty notes that you get out of in the middle of your palate as you go further into the aftertaste are a little bit biscuity. So that might be an indication of a kind of biscuit malt, or well, not a biscuit malt, sorry, a Pilsner malt or a lager malt of some description. So I wouldn't be surprised about that. But yeah, the middle third of your palate in this one is pretty nicely done in this. It's got the lightness that you expect, it's got a bit of the smoothness in there, and it does give you a wee bit of brown sugar and a wee touch of crispness too. So again, that's a plus point for fierce beer, absolutely. So yeah, I think that covers the middle third of the palate quite well then. So on that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you do get a wee bit more of a kind of bready, doughy build up in there. There's a wee touch of bread crusty quality as well, which I can certainly appreciate. And then as you go into the back third of your palate, you can feel there's a nice sort of smooth, wheaty, white bready quality in there, which I think works, which I think does work really quite well for this beer. So yeah, that side of this one I think goes together nicely. You do get a little bit more of a kind of bitiness out of this beer, as I say, the further you go into the palate. But on top of that back third of your palate, you can feel the sort of airiness of the beer just kind of increases a little bit. You've got the yeasty flavours kind of sitting on top of the of that back third of your palate. So when you start from the back of the tongue and come forward, you can feel that the flavour just condenses. It just condenses down a little bit, so you get it, it goes like that, and then as you move into that middle third of your palate, you can feel it kind of squashes down a little bit, and then the middle third of your palate is quite condensed and malty and things like that. So I think that kind of comprehensively describes what's going on in terms of the malty and yeasty side of things with this beer. So yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. So back corners of the palate, you've definitely got a wee touch of earthiness in there. That's most likely the mosaic that's going to give you that. I think there might well be a bittering hop in this beer as well, potentially a little touch of Columbus, something like this. But as you move further forward from that, you get a little touch of a herbal quality, and as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, it's got a nice wee bit of a floral and aromatic and sort of spicy kind of thing. So yeah, definitely a wee bit of that going on with this beer for sure. Yeah, I think that does work. That works very, very nicely for sure. But yeah, in terms of the floral aromaticity of this one, I wouldn't describe it as being kind of spicy, too spicy or anything like that, but it is quite a nice bright floral aromaticity that you get from it. Then round the front curve of the palate, the beer is a little bit lighter and more grassy as well, which I can very much appreciate. So yeah, it again, it just works. It works out really, really nicely in that sense. So lovely kind of bright grassiness to this beer, a little bit of zestiness too. So yeah, this beer, the green component of this one I think does fit very well with everything else. But on the fruity side of the beer, it is pretty much what you would expect if you know Citra and Mosaic quite well. And these are quite popular hops, of course. So let's focus then on this front third of your palate. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate then, I would say that this beer has a little bit of a kind of doughy, bready kind of thing building up. You've got a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty element that comes out of it as well. But underneath that, underneath the that front third of your tongue, if you like, it is kind of more smooth and kind of white bready in a sense there. Then you've got that lovely oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. You get that sitting on top of it. So if you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a wee bit of the more pungent passion fruit, but as you move further forward, you get a lovely juicy mango-y quality, and as you reach the middle of that front third of your tongue, there's a touch more kind of, there is a wee bit of an apricot-y note to this one. It's not quite as dry and fruity in a sense as the Aroma would have you believe. It is more of a kind of oily, juicy, fruity note. that you're getting out of the Citra on this one. But as you move into that front half of the front third of your tongue, you'll get the juicier tangerine elements of the light juicy tangerine elements from the Mosaic. Absolutely. And as you just get towards the front edge of your tongue, you will get one or two little lemon limey elements in there, which again can come from the Citra. But I think overall, as you go further into the aftertaste, for me, it's the Mosaic that starts to dominate this one a little bit. I think it does get a wee bit more orangey the further that you go into the aftertaste with the beer. But it gets a big thumbs up from me. I really like how this beer, how this one goes about its business. So yeah, in terms of a drinkable pale ale, it certainly does the business. So well done to Fierce once again for this. And I think we are getting this one just in good condition actually in Sweden at the moment. So if you see this one, buy it and have a go at it. These guys are a very well respected Scottish brewery, especially if you see some of the dark beers. If you see some of the dark stuff, buy that stuff up. But yeah, this is showing you as well that they can also do the kind of lighter and more sessionable side of things very well too. But yeah, let's round off this review with the mouthfeel then. So I would describe this one, this beer is it's pretty much right in the middle of the spectrum. It's a mid-bodied beer, maybe leaning towards the lower, the kind of lower mid-bodied section of the spectrum. But carbonation does have a wee bit of a prickle to it, which is quite nice. There's a good little bit of smoothness to this one, which I can certainly appreciate. So I really like that. So yeah, it's a nice, just smooth, drinkable New England hazy pale ale. This beer actually, but in terms of the hoppy bitterness and things like that, this one is kind of typical of what you'd expect. This is about a 25, 30 IBU beer. It's not going to blow the head off you in terms of its IBU count. And the malty side of things is lovely and smooth and develops a wee bit of sweetness later on. And you've got a lovely little bit of a juicy, fruity character in there as well. So overall, it's a very it is a very nice beer, this one, and it gets a big, it does get a big thumbs up from me in that regard. Lovely, just juicy, fruity element to it. So yeah, I really like how this beer goes about its business. It's a lovely drinkable pale ale, this one, and it is as good as the Late Shift as I remember it. Yeah, the Late Shift was a nice IPA, this, so I think I definitely need to have a go at the Night Shift when I get back home to Scotland. But I'm glad that I got the chance to try this one over here in Sweden. So I hope that you guys enjoyed my take on this beer as well. Let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Fierce Beer. We will no doubt return to these guys at some point very soon, I'm sure. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out Fierce Beer, and have a go at some of their beers if you get the chance. Slàinte, skål, cheers. See you guys on the next one. This was the Date Shift, a 5% New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, pale ale from Fierce Beer in Dyce, just to the northwest of Aberdeen in the northeast of Scotland. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.